Coming up on Access Tech Live.
CSUN's Assistive Technology Conference, speaking without vocal cords, and previewing Microsoft Surface hardware event.
This is Access Tech Live with Stephen Scott and Marc Aflalo. The latest in tech and accessibility every week. Follow us now and get involved at Access Tech Live.
Hey everybody, welcome to another Access Tech Live. I am Stephen Scott. Marc Aflalo is back with me, as he is this and every week. How are you doing this week, Marc?
I cannot complain. Looking forward to Microsoft's event, which is starting, well, it started about 40 seconds ago, Stephen, so we'll be following that throughout the show, plus talking CSUN. It's an exciting week to be in tech.
It sure is. Last week, of course, we previewed this week's CSUN conference with Interim Managing Director Julia Santiago. This week, Michael Babcock is on site. You'll know Michael, of course, from Kelly and Ramia. He drops in there regularly here on AMI TV. He'll be joining us here on Access Tech Live this hour. Plus, some early announcements coming from CSUN as well. We're going to dive into those. And as you say, Marc, Microsoft's annual Surface event is happening right now. It's happening right this moment. Get your popcorn, because we're going to bring some updates to you throughout the show. And if that's not enough, Zach Bowden joins us from Windows Central as well to give us all the very latest news as it happens. That is why we're live. That is why we're Access Tech Live. But first, let's get to Marc and the headlines.
Now, Access Tech Live headlines.
Researchers at the University of New South Wales have introduced Viv and Friends, a collection of AI digital companions designed to provide companionship and emotional support and, of course, opportunities for experiential learning. Unlike real humans, Stephen, the digital characters are available 24/7, and they're programmed from data collected from people with lived experience of dementia and other neurodegenerative conditions. Viv, for example, came to life as a digital character based on a woman with similar symptoms of vascular dementia. She can talk about dementia in real time or even be programmed to share personal interests like gardening or birdwatching, for example. They're lifelike depictions, and they're created using the same technology that's used to create modern video games, super high quality and responsive. It's currently being used in retirement homes on a life-size portrait screen or iPad, and it'll be exciting to see how this technology and other AI digital companions will develop in the future. Swiss company Curaprox have created the world's first robotic toothbrush designed to make oral care more accessible, especially for those with limited mobility or dexterity. It's shaped like a U and features almost 13,000 soft bristles. It's called the Samba, and it moves around the gum line and fluctuates at both high and low frequencies, which covers every tooth and groove it could possibly reach, requiring no motion whatsoever from the user. This innovative toothbrush has the potential to revolutionize the way we approach oral hygiene, and it'll be exciting to see how it develops in the future as well, plus, of course, future iterations. Apple is reportedly interested in bringing Google's Gemini AI to iPhones. Gemini AI is a powerful AI artificial intelligence system developed by Google that has the potential to enhance the capability of Apple devices, they say. This move could bring new features and improvements to the iPhone, making it even more versatile and user-friendly. It'll be interesting to see how this potential partnership develops and what it could mean for the future of both companies and, of course, their technologies and partnerships. Researchers at UCLA have developed a new wearable technology that allows people to speak without using vocal cords. It's a breakthrough technology that uses sensors attached just to your throat here, underneath your chin, to detect movements of the tongue and mouth and translates them into speech. The team behind the innovation hopes that it'll provide a new way for people who have lost their ability to speak due to injury or illness to communicate. This technology has the potential to revolutionize the way we approach communication, and it will be exciting to see how things unfold. Stephen, so many things going on today. We've got the Microsoft event coming up and ongoing now. Satya Nadella is already on stage. We'll, of course, bring you news as it's announced. But our question of the day, Stephen, our question of the day.
Yes, now this, of course, it ties in perfectly to this, right? Because we have this event going on, the Surface event. But we're asking you today, what annual event do you look forward to most and why? I love this question because everybody knows the answer from my end is Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference that happens every June. That's the thing I look forward to. That and the MacBook event, and then sometimes the iPhone event. I look forward to that. I look forward to if it's got an Apple logo on it, I'm probably watching it.
Okay, well, some people might say, things like sporting events, start of the new baseball season, NHL season.
Ooh,
we used to have the comedy festival here in Montreal. That was just canceled, so I'm not looking forward to that anymore. But if you've got an opinion, If you've got an opinion, we want you to get involved on all our social media platforms. It's at Access Tech Live. You can also email us if you want. It's feedback@accesstechlive.com, and you can get involved as well. Stephen, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Michael Babcock is with us. He's the host of his own podcast, the Pay Your Own Podcast. And plus, of course, he joins us live from the 39th Annual CSUN Assistive Technology Conference. You don't want to miss it. We'll be right back here on Access Tech Live.
There's more Access Tech Live to come. Get involved and have your say at Access Tech Live on social media. We'll be right back. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. The show will return in less than a minute. Access Tech Live will be back in 30 seconds. Access Tech Live, the latest in tech and accessibility with Stephen Scott and Marc Aflalo.
And coming up, we're going to be joined by Michael Babcock to talk to us from the 39th CSUN Assistive Technology Conference. Before we get to that, though, there's been a story just breaking. Marc, Apple in court.
Well, I mean, U.S. Department of Justice is claiming that Apple has maintained, and I quote, an illegal monopoly over the smartphone market by locking in customers and making experiences worse for rival products. They are suing Apple. This kind of reminds me of when the government went after Microsoft years ago. But the DOJ, along with 16 state and district attorneys, accuses Apple of driving up prices for consumers and developers at the expense of making users more reliant on its phones. We'll dig that into that deeper and probably get somebody on to talk about it. I can think of some people, but it was about time. I mean, it was bound to happen. Let's just say that somebody was going to point the finger and say, you have too much control. It's amazing how we chastise companies that are successful. I don't get it.
Yeah, it's true. But of course, it's not that dissimilar to what's been going on over my side of the pond. The European Union, of course, has been active in going after Apple for kind of similar things. Anyway, okay, interesting story. We'll come back to that. Thanks for that. But let's focus now on CSUN, which is happening this week, the 39th annual CSUN event, the Assistive Technology Conference, where there are many talks, many speeches that many people go for, but it's really the exhibition hall that interests us tech heads over here. Michael Babcock is joining us from the event right now. He's the host of the Pay On podcast, many podcasts actually. I think there's about 1,000 podcasts, Michael, you're currently
only
hosting
1,000
at the moment. Only 1,000 he's hosting, yeah. Michael, good to have you here on Access Tech Live.
Thank you guys for having me. It's amazing to get into my hotel room and breathe for a minute and hear myself think. So appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah, it's a busy place. Tell us about the scene. Tell us what it's like there. Tell us, first of all, where you are.
Yeah, so I am in Anaheim. For those who don't know, this is Southern California, not too far away from Disneyland. We're close enough to Disneyland that you can hear the fireworks at night. So that's
Oh,
a pretty
wow.
awesome experience. This is my first CSUN, and everyone kept telling me it's going to be busy. It's going to be busy, and I'm like, I'm a social person. I got no problem with busy. Oh man, it's very busy. So heard about 3,600 people are here, and it is very overwhelming, sensory overload for sure, but it's an amazing experience. And I told someone this morning at breakfast, I said, I am coming back next year, no matter what I have to do, because it's been a great opportunity to connect with exhibitors and to learn a little bit, and of course, hang out with some friends too.
3,600 people, that doesn't seem like a lot in the grand scheme of things when you look at conferences like, CES and stuff. So it's an opportunity to get a little bit more intimate than you would otherwise. Michael, is there anything specific that brought you to CSUN this year? Something specific that you wanted to get your hands on, experience firsthand?
So one thing brought me to the CSUN conference that I unfortunately don't get to see for about another 90 minutes or so. I had to set an appointment with him because they are probably one of the most popular booths there, and that's the Glidance. And that's a great experience, and I want to go play with that. And to touch on what you're just talking about, Mark, 3,600 people isn't a bad number, but when you have 3,600 people and 3,600 canes and 3,600 guide dogs,
Yeah.
you got to add those numbers to it too.
Yeah, that's the reality. That's the problem, isn't it? That there's a lot of people there. And of course, you're at the California State University. That is what CSUN stands for. It's always important, I think, to let people know, because everyone calls it CSUN, but no one fully understands why it's called CSUN, so it's always good to mention that. Okay, so you're going to have a look at Glidance. We're going to talk a bit more about Glidance a little bit later, but there have been a lot of announcements already, and hardware announcements. I mean, even around Braille, for example, we saw Orbit Research announcing a couple of new Braille displays. What have you been hearing about that?
So Orbit Research did announce a new Braille display, the Q40, which has 48 Braille cells, and the Q20, and both of these have QWERTY keyboards on them. I did see a cool Braille display yesterday called the Activator, and what's really unique about the Activator is it has a Braille keyboard on it, and then what you can do is you can flip up these two clips on the left and right side, and then that Braille keyboard flips back and gives you a QWERTY keyboard. So you have the best of both worlds. If you want to use Braille input, you can, or you can use QWERTY input. It's a 40-cell Braille display. And the company that's behind the Activator has a unique technology where they can sense where your fingers are on the display and share that with a teacher. So a teacher can monitor up to 4 displays at once. And another feature of that is if you're reading along, you can have the Activator read out loud to you what you're reading and what's under your fingers, because they can sense where your fingers are. If you don't want it to be that verbose, you can turn that down a little bit and say, hey, if I pause on this cell for half a second or for a second, then read to me the letter and then give it to me phonetically. And I think that would be a great tool to teach someone Braille, or for someone who's learning Braille and who doesn't have experience with that. One other thing that I'll mention about this company is they have a 20-cell Braille display, and it's kind of cool because I touched it, because you got to always put your hands on things at a Braille booth, and it started playing music at me. I'm like, what is this? But they use that sensory technology on the Braille display itself, and when you run your finger across a cell and you read that Braille note, it's going to play that music note for you. And so it's a great way to teach Braille music notation.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the Activator, of course, just to be clear on that, is that is a device that's been out for a little while. Although, like you say, that this is the chance for you to get hands-on with a device like this. These are not available in Best Buy. That's the problem. That's why these events are so important, right? HIMSS International also launched a new Braille display as well, the Braille eMotion, which again is 40 cells. It has the Perkins input, from what I'm reading. It also has the word processing built in and other tools. It seems like there's been a lot of Braille advancements. Would you agree?
Yeah, a lot of Braille advancements, and I'll tell you, I'm sure I don't have to tell either of you, actually. One guess, what do you think the buzzword is this year?
Oh, well, is it an acronym by any chance?
Yeah, so everything has AI. Everything, like I don't think there's a booth I've gone to that hasn't mentioned AI in some of their materials and stuff. So Braille, AI, and also wearables seem to be interesting this year. I have not put my hands on the Envision glasses, so I'm going to go check those out. There's a new wearable called ARX AI, of course, because AI, and it is a headset. For those who can see on screen, I'm wearing a pair of Shocks bone conduction headphones. So the ARX headset looks a lot like the bone conduction headphones that I'm wearing, which sit in front of your ears and vibrate that bone. But on the right-hand side of it, it has a flat rectangle box that points forward, and there's 3 buttons on it. You press and hold the center button, which is round, and it will give you an opportunity to ask the AI a question about the text or environment that you're seeing right in front of you. Well, that you're not seeing, but that the camera is seeing. And then there's a repeat button and a back button, so you can get all that information and navigate that all from the headset, and you don't have to wear anything. The gotcha with it that made me a little sad is right now it only works on Android. It is tethered with a USB-C cable. And I asked, well, can't you use iPhone 15 and 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max? And apparently they said on the USB-C ports for the iPhone 15 line of products, Apple doesn't push enough power to power the headset.
Yeah, so you can't get the video capability from that. That may come in the iPhone 16, though. If they bring in, say, into the Pro a Thunderbolt port, that could be kind of cool. Just saying, Apple, that'd be nice. Now, it's interesting because you mentioned all this technology, and there's lots of interesting stuff there. But you also got hands-on, I believe, with something that seems to be my arch nemesis in conversations these days, a robot guide dog.
That is, well, I haven't got my hands on the robot guide dog. That
doesn't like
robot guide dog. So it's not a guide dog. It's a robot dog, and that's what threw me off, from Sony.
Oh.
And what Sony has done is they have, especially for people who, older individuals or people who may have autism or other challenges, who can't take care of a dog and all the needs that come with it, you can get a robotic dog. It's about the size of a small puppy, like a puppy lab, and it allows you to pet it. It likes to be pet. It likes to be scratched under the chin. If it does something positive, you encourage that behavior by, calling it a good dog. And if it does something that you don't necessarily like it doing, you can tell it no. It learns from your vocal cues. It does wag its tail, which I thought was pretty cool, and it bites. I scratched it under the chin, and then I left my hand right there, and it put my finger in its mouth and kind of bit down on it. It didn't have any teeth, but I thought it was kind of funny.
So, Michael, really the only benefit of this dog is it doesn't, poop. Really?
Yeah.
And you don't have to feed it. Dog food is expensive.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is a very good point. Okay, so we talk about
you do have to feed it. Sorry, hang on. You do have to feed it. You have to feed it electricity.
Oh, you make a good point, Stephen.
Yes, that's pretty expensive too in some cases.
That's a good point. We need to add a solar panel to his head. Okay, Michael, I got a question for you. So we've got, stuff. There's obviously cool things to see in the exhibits, but there's a lot of conferences around CSUN as well, a lot of conversations going on. Is there anyone in particular that I got to attend this one for this reason, or the people in specific that that you've been trying to listen to or hear conversations with or have conversations with that you're going to finally have the opportunity to meet at CSUN?
Yeah, so Vispero, the company behind JAWS and ZoomText, I've been able to make some great connections with their team that you don't really get to make when you're on the support line or you're on the sales line calling them or on a Zoom call. That's been pretty awesome. I will say one thing no one warned me about when coming to CSUN is these after conference parties, I guess we'll call them, where the organizations put together a group of people that's, and I'm going to use air quotes here, invite only, and then all of a sudden you have 300 people in the hotel room and you can't even hear yourself thinking. So that was an interesting opportunity that I got into yesterday. And then the last one that I'll mention here is Cardiff over at Envision has been chatting me up on Mastodon, telling me, come see my booth, come over to the booth and check us out. So being able to make that connection and actually meet him and shake his hand and say, hey, I want to check out your Envision glasses. And what's this about Envision AI and some additional artificial intelligence coming with a voice assistant? So I'm excited to play with that and see what that's like too.
Yeah, I mean, I know that you're there in your own capacity. I know that in previous events we've spoken to you at, you're generally there selling your wares as part of your day
Yes.
job at AT Guys, and obviously doing your podcasts and all of that, which is great. But, I wonder, obviously we're inside the blind bubble, you and I, but, here on Access Tech Live, we like to broaden the scope a little bit. So you mentioned the dog, which actually is cooler than I thought it sounded initially. But any other tech that you've thought that is either blind adjacent, useful for people who are blind and have additional disabilities, or for people who have other disabilities? Anything that's caught your attention?
Yeah, so two things. Regrettably, I don't remember the name of the company of either of them. One of which, though, is a real-time signing service. So the way I envision it is IRA for people who have hearing impairments that need sign language interpretation. You open up their app, you call them up, and then they can provide real-time sign for you, and they can they can sign to you, and they can read people signing if necessary as well. So that's pretty cool to be able to get that information. They are working with Starbucks, which might sound a little familiar to those of us who use IRA. So if you go into Starbucks, you can use this service without any problems, and it doesn't cost. They do have a consumer-based plan, so you can purchase minutes that you can interact with the service on, and it works both on the iPhone and Android. That was really cool. And when I chatted with the gentleman there, I told him how excited I was to share that with other individuals. The other thing is AI, of course, because AI is everywhere. AI real-time captioning, especially on video content that is live on YouTube or other streaming services. There are some professional services that you can use to get those captioned, and then they'll go back and caption some of your older content. Primarily, they're focused on the education line of videos, but they eventually want to come in and say, hey, if you are a content creator, we will be able to help you with producing realistic and accurate captions for your content.
That's really cool. The real-time the communication thing is a company called SCOM, and the product is the UB Duo 3. I remember because I was looking at the list of exhibitors yesterday going, this is what we need to talk to. This is who we need to talk to. So that's really cool. Michael, still another day of CSUN, obviously, today. Enjoy it. Take it all in. I know you're going to want to go back next year. That's great. You're going to tell us if we should go there next year, which is the important part. And we'll talk again soon, and we'll find out what your takeaways were, because I'm really curious to see what some of the other things that'll come out of it, because you're just scraping the surface here.
Yep. And was only there for one day. Appreciate you guys having me. And of course, you need to come next year. No questions asked there.
Okay, well, we'll see you next year then. That is Michael Babcock. Coming up, there have already been a couple announcements from this year's conference, Be My Eyes and Vision, and more. We'll chat about those after a quick break here on Access Tech Live, and we'll check in on that Microsoft event.
There's more Access Tech Live to come. Get involved and have your say at Access Tech Live on social media. We'll be right back. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. The show will return in less than a minute. Access Tech Live will be back in 30 seconds. Now, back to Access Tech Live, the latest in tech and accessibility with Stephen Scott and Marc Aflalo.
Welcome back to Access Tech Live. Now, we are following the Microsoft Surface event that is happening right now. There are rumours of a new Surface Pro and a new Surface laptop as well, possibly even a Surface Go, which is like a smaller version of that Surface Pro.
Not rumors, Stephen, not rumors anymore.
Well, okay, right. Give us an update then. Come on, breaking news. What's happening?
But they've officially announced the Surface Pro 10 and the Surface Laptop 6 for businesses. The quick and dirty news is really all the updates are under the hood. New Intel processor is actually one of the first manufacturers to adopt the new processors. Normally they lag behind, but no other big changes in terms of the actual physicality of these two devices. Really, a lot of it is under the hood. So we'll give you all the details with Zach Bowden a bit later on in the show. But yeah, it's officially released the Surface Pro 10 and the Surface Laptop 6.
So no redesign yet? No redesign at all?
Nope, nothing. No, the bodies and everything look the same. We'll try to get some images up for you towards the end of the show, and you'll see, again, under the hood stuff, like new processors and better cameras and a keyboard with that Copilot key on the Surface Pro and the laptop. And we'll find out more. There's so much more under the hood and kind of behind the scenes that happens with these things. So we'll find out in a minute.
Well, especially this year with AI, because ultimately the hardware is what's going to drive all of this artificial intelligence capability. Okay, well, look, we're talking about the Microsoft event. We'll get into that, as you say, a little bit later with Zach. But let's go back to CSUN. And there's been lots of interesting news announcements coming out through the week. And I want to talk you through some of these, Mark, because they're very interesting. So we've had Be My Eyes and the CEO, Mike Buckley, who's actually been texting me through this show. So in my ear, I've been hearing Mike text and say, hey, this is a really cool thing. You've got to talk about this. Lots of interesting stuff. He's very excitable, as our Mike. But he has been talking about a new feature that was announced at CSUN within the Be My Eyes app, which gives disabled people easier access to customer service phone numbers. Now, here is Mike Buckley, who is the CEO of Be My Eyes, to explain what that means.
We are launching something we're calling Service Directory in the app. And I know you both know, and some of your listeners know, that we already have a customer service portal inside the app called Specialized Help that allows you to get to, 20 or 30, I think, companies and 10 or 15 blindness organizations very seamlessly at the touch of one button. What we're going to do is dramatically expand the number of companies that blind and low vision can connect to through our app. So it'll start out with about 600 companies, but and it's going to be in a beta, but where this will go in the future is we're going to take the top 10,000 B2C companies in the entirety of the world and make them accessible eventually through a voice command through the Be My Eyes app so that you can connect and get a freaking human being on the phone rather than trying to navigate Google or the obfuscated phone line, et cetera, et cetera. We want to become a quick, seamless, easy repository of all of your customer service needs globally.
Okay, so that sounds good, but Stephen, really, at the end of the day, is it easier than just doing Google search?
Well, that is a really great question, and it's one I actually put to Mike Buckley this week. Here's his response.
Some companies have lines devoted to accessibility, but they're hard to find.
Okay, I get it, but on the flip side, though, for companies, though, what's the benefit? I know it helps disabled people access customer support, but companies are pushing people to use their own online tools these days and connect with them more. So is there a benefit there through the app?
Yeah, so it's interesting because this is exactly what my thinking was as well. What's the benefit to the company here? Because, they want everyone to be using chatbots. They want us all to be using live chat services, all that kind of stuff. And I think that's true. But, of course, what's interesting is a lot of these companies already have these numbers available. They have these accessibility helplines. They have customer helplines that may not be accessibility related, but can get you through to a human being. So they exist already. The problem is there's nowhere to find this information because they're trying to push online. They're trying to push everything online. I mean, how many times, and I remember once having a situation with an email when I could not get my email to work, and I think my internet was down, and I called up the company and they said, if you can't find the answer, go online. I'm like, I'd love to go online, but I have no internet at the moment. So that's the kind of issue people have. But of course, for blind and disabled people, it's accessing that information. You know, doing the Google search is one thing, but going through and trawling through all that information to get to the phone number, which is probably hidden on a website somewhere, can be challenging. So that is something which I hope this will certainly make a difference, you know, to many disabled people. And of course, that is the biggest challenge for a lot of disabled people. We just want to talk to someone. But you're right, the companies themselves need a reason to engage, and Mike explains that to us as well.
I think too often companies in the accessibility space try to sell goods and services based on saying it's the right thing to do, right? Or there's a moral imperative. And by the way, that's true, right? But you know what gets companies to move? Money, ROI, right? And so the ROI argument that we're making to the marketplace is, look at our customers like Spotify, P&G, Unilever, Barilla Pasta, Google, Microsoft. Do you know what happened when we introduced video calls to Microsoft? Their call handling times went down by 50%. So they solved the consumer's problem in half the time. What happened as a result of that? Customer satisfaction went up. What happened as a result of that? The time that Microsoft spends paying their hourly agents went down, right? So saving you money, giving the customer better service. By the way, the agents like the calls better this way too with video. By the way, Google, same story. Call handling times were reduced 68%. That's real revenue, right? So we're not just making a moral and right thing to do argument, which is still important, by the way, but we're making a financial and ROI and customer satisfaction based argument. So I think it's going to be a more compelling argument in the marketplace, right? If you can get the accessibility team in the company and the bean counters nodding heads, we got a chance.
He makes a point. Another product, Stephen, that was first seen at CES this year is Glidance. And Michael mentioned earlier, it's a mobility aid for people who are blind and partially sighted. Amos Miller is the CEO and founder of the project, and talked us through the design of this unusual device.
It's basically you can think of it as a robot that guides a blind person or provides them the same experience they would have using a guide dog or a sighted guide. And really the way it works is that you hold on to Glide's handle. The handle extends at a 45-degree in front of you to the ground, and there are two wheels on the ground. And the wheels steer. So the wheels, like the front of a car, they steer left and right. Yeah. So when you walk and you walk forward with the device, Glide can use its sensors and AI and cameras and everything to see the path in front of you and make determinations on the safe path to take, and then guide you on that path. I would not really compare it to a cane, because you don't hold it like a cane and you don't tap it like a cane, you don't move it around like a cane, you don't use it like a cane. If anything, the experience is more akin to that of working a dog.
Yeah, see, Stephen, it seems a little bit unusual. I almost describe it as that little fake vacuum that we used to use as kids that had a bubble on the top, and as you moved it, the bubbles would pop up and down. And I'm not the first person to do that. I was talking to Tim, who's over at CSUN for us right now, getting some interviews, and he described it as the exact same thing because he saw it hands-on. So here's my question to you. Would you want to walk around town using basically a vacuum in front of you?
Well, I'm walking around town right now with a stick with a gigantic ball at the end of it, which, you know, freaks people out sometimes. So I don't know if this makes a huge difference. I will say, though, that it's a great question, because you know, there are questions around whether or not this is something people would want to use in certain areas at certain times of the day or night. You know, would this draw attention to you? I mean, the cane and the dog can draw attention to people anyway, but there is a serious question about safety, right? Do we want to walk around with this? For me, it's very simple. It's all about the use of this device, the usefulness of this device. If this can make the difference and allow me to have the experience of a guide dog without actually having a guide dog, and you know, there's lots of people out there who, for various reasons, can't have a guide dog. I work from home, so I'm not eligible to get a guide dog. It's not something I would be able to get. So for that reason, this could be really useful. It kind of builds in the capability of the cane and the guide dog. It's a guide dog that I can unplug at night. And that's okay to say that because it's not an official dog. So that's okay. But look, it's all about getting those celebrity endorsements when it comes to launching something new. Now, we aren't sure if this particular celebrity will offer his, but he did get a chance to play earlier this year at CES. I'm talking about Stevie Wonder, who is already on scene at CSUN. I've been told he's there. Amos Miller told us about the experience of meeting him back in January.
We were doing a couple of other demos, and all of a sudden my wife says, Stevie Wonder is coming. And his entourage appears along the corridor, and we had this real surreal moment of Kyle Buzzard, who's our mechanical engineer, industrial designer, was running the demos. He introduced the device to Stevie, and it was one of those moments that you never expect. I don't know how to describe it. Everybody was at awe. There was a funny moment. You know what's the funniest thing with Glide? People, you walk with it in the demos, and people jump in front of it to see how it will react. So somebody did that to Stevie, and they were quickly whisked away by his security team. And then we had a nice conversation with him, and he gave a lot of great feedback about how important this kind of device is, and you know that he's a great ambassador for the community. He also brought some important questions around safety. Not only safety in terms of not falling or bumping into things, but safety in rough neighborhoods. Like walking as a blind person in a rough neighborhood can, presents its own challenges. And how can a device like this help in those situations? So it was a very, very special moment.
Oh, come on. It's got to be a special moment when Stevie Wonder shows up, Stephen. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. If I can speak, Microsoft's event is ongoing right now. Some cool announcements. Zach Bowden is the senior editor over at Windows Central, and he's going to join us next to break it all down. Stick around.
There's more Access Tech Live to come. Get involved and have your say at Access Tech Live on social media. We'll be right back. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. The show will return in less than a minute. Access Tech Live will be back in 30 seconds. Now, back to Access Tech Live, the latest in tech and accessibility with Stephen Scott and Marc Aflalo.
And we're back on Access Tech Live with me, Stephen Scott, Marc Aflalo with me as well. We're covering the Microsoft Surface event that is happening right now. And Zach Bowden is the senior editor over at Windows Central. Can't believe we booked you in today, Zach. What timing? Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Good to have you here. So, of course, the event is happening at the moment. It's a Surface event, so we're talking hardware, which is the thing that gets most of us excited here at Access Tech Live. So what are some of the new announcements you can tell us about that have happened so far?
So yeah, Microsoft has unveiled two new products today. They've unveiled the Surface Pro 10 for business and the Surface Laptop 6 for business. The for business sort of affix there being that these are only available to Microsoft's commercial customers, so you won't find them in Best Buy and Amazon, but you can head to the Microsoft Store online and purchase one yourself if it's something you really want. These are really designed for sort of being purchased in bulk by large enterprises or educational establishments. But there are some new upgrades here. We do have Intel Core Ultra chips powering both the Surface Pro 10 and Surface Laptop 6, which offer 2 times faster performance over the previous Surface Pro and Surface Laptop, which I think were powered by Intel 12th Gen chips. We have new RAM options up to 64 gigabytes for the first time in both Surface Pro and Surface Laptop, and a number of display and webcam upgrades as well.
But hardware-wise, Zach, nothing's changed, right? This is the same form factor. They look identical. It's really under the hood, and I find that super interesting because, you know, why separate business and consumer? Do you think we're going to have some kind of redesign down the road in a couple of months in May when they announce consumer stuff? Unlikely, right?
Well, you'd be surprised. Microsoft is planning a second wave of hardware this spring. Today's announcements are the business stuff, which do have the same designs as the last gen. And the reason for that is enterprises don't really like change. You know, some of them build special cases or point of service desks or stands for this hardware. So when the design changes, that can usually affect their flow and stuff. So for the business models, they've maintained the same design, but Microsoft is planning a more consumer-facing version of these devices, which they're expected to announce in May. And those devices will include, they'll be powered by ARM processors instead of Intel, as well as the Surface Laptop will have a slightly tweaked design with thinner display bezels.
Zach, I find it interesting that these are some of the first laptops or devices we're seeing with the new Core Ultra chips. Normally, Microsoft kind of waits a bit for that. Do you think it's a significant move for them to do this early and focus on business before consumers?
Yeah, I think so. I think, you know, historically Surface has stepped back when it comes to adopting the latest chips from Intel, and I think that's partly to do with the fact that they were burned quite hard with Skylake back in 2015. They were the first to adopt Skylake, and Skylake launched with a number of issues. So ever since then, they've sort of waited a little bit to adopt new Intel chips. However, this time round, things are different. Intel Core Ultra chips also come with dedicated NPUs, which are required for some of the upcoming Windows AI features that are expected to launch later this year. And so Microsoft didn't have a choice, really. If they wanted to have these new PCs support some of the new AI features coming later this year, they needed to adopt this chip with the dedicated NPUs, which enable features like Windows Studio Effects, which uses AI to enhance like a video feed or a microphone with noise background removal, things like that.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because, of course, you've got all this new hardware coming out, and it's great, and these new chips are going in there, and we'll see certainly a change for consumers in May when that announcement happens. But I wonder if it's a bit confusing for consumers. I mean, Apple have made it a little bit simple, haven't they? It's M and then a number, and then when that number goes up, that means that's good. We all understand that's new and that's better. But it's a bit more difficult when you're talking about ultra cores and, you know, all these names that people go, well, hang on, what is this? What do I buy?
Yeah, it's a shame, really. That's not in Microsoft's control, unfortunately. Since Microsoft doesn't make its own chips, it can't really go about telling other companies how to brand their own chips. That's something Qualcomm and Intel are just terrible at. You know, in the past, Microsoft used to create custom versions of the Qualcomm chip that was on the market. So they had the Microsoft SQ1, SQ2, SQ3, which were just rebranded Qualcomm chips. But I don't know if they're going to keep doing that. They might. I think Qualcomm may say, hey, Microsoft, can you stop doing that? We want you to use our branding for this. You know, Snapdragon X Elite isn't the worst name in the world for a chip, I guess, but it's definitely not as clean as the M2, M3, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the reason we're all excited about the chips, and I think the reason that I'm kind of more interested in this event than perhaps I would normally be, considering this is a business-focused event, is the fact that we're starting to see the kind of hardware coming out, as Mark says, under the hood, that is going to power all of these new AI features. Where are we today with all of this, Zach? I mean, are the chips powerful enough to do a lot of this work on device, or do we still have to reach into the cloud?
So as of right now, much of what you do in regards to AI on a PC does reach out to the cloud. That's happening off your device. But with these Intel Core Ultra chips and the upcoming Qualcomm chips, some of that functionality will be moved to being done on device because the NPUs are finally getting to a point where that can happen. Microsoft hasn't announced anything specific just yet, but they've made it perfectly clear that they do want to be able to do this on the device. Things like being able to handle specific Copilot commands locally rather than sending everything to the cloud to be processed first. Things like image generation on device, that's something that's definitely coming. The only real AI features we have right now that are processed on device within Windows is the Windows Studio Effects stuff, which, as I mentioned, is able to enhance video feeds and microphone feeds.
I should mention NPU stands for Neural Processing Unit, which is what obviously powers a lot of that on-device AI stuff. Zach, what does an event like this tell you, with your experience, about Microsoft's roadmap for the next couple of years?
So Microsoft, I think, are branding these as their first AI PCs, and the term AI PC is something you're going to hear a lot this year from not just Microsoft, but other OEMs as well. You may have already heard it from the likes of Dell and Lenovo. This is the umbrella term for PCs with NPUs, and in regards to Surface, the goal ideally here is to have every Surface PC going forward ship with a built-in NPU and also be available with ARM. I know that hasn't been announced today, but at some point this year that will start becoming the case where when they announce new hardware, there will be an ARM option alongside Intel if there is an Intel one. And that's because Microsoft wants to elevate Windows on ARM to just normal standards. Like right now, I think there's a bit of a stigma with Windows on ARM where it's either slower or it has compatibility issues. Microsoft wants you to forget about all of that. They reckon these chips, these upcoming Qualcomm chips, are good enough so that a normal everyday user won't notice the difference between an Intel PC and an ARM PC. Compatibility-wise, the emulation layer should be able to brute force through performance issues, which has been a problem in the past. That the Qualcomm chips were never that good up until now, and so emulated apps ran a little bit slow. Ideally, that will no longer be the case, but we'll obviously have to wait and see for when we get that hardware later this year.
Yeah, I mean, you know, my experience is that the best way to experience Windows is on a Mac. And I know some people don't like me saying that, but that's my experience. And, you know, that's an interesting thing because, of course, there is ARM. It is silicon, essentially, as Apple calls it, but it's ARM processors. So, you know, clearly we're seeing a move towards that. Do you think it's an overall shift towards, I mean, I know it's different with Windows, right? It's different with Microsoft overall because there's so much legacy out there. Still, you know, I know there's still organizations still running floppy disks in their systems and old versions of Windows. So it's going to take a long time to get everyone on board. Oh, that's true. It is absolutely true. But that's the problem, right? So it does take longer. So is this more of a gradual shift, unlike Apple, that can just change like in 2 seconds?
Yeah, and I don't think it's accurate to even say it will be a shift. I think ideally we're never going to see Microsoft move away from Intel and AMD. That Windows will always support those processors. It's more bringing ARM up to coexisting alongside those other architectures. So you can make a choice. Would you like a PC with an Intel chip, or would you like a PC with an ARM chip? Both Microsoft wants everybody to see as equal sort of competitors versus, you know, Intel's up here and Qualcomm's down here, or Apple's ARM is up here and Windows' ARM is down here. It's Microsoft wants everybody to see ARM as the same as whatever else is out there on the market as well.
Zach, I know you got to go pick apart all the announcements and figure out what it means for the future. We'll have you back on in a couple months when they announce some consumer stuff. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Coming up here on Access Tech Live, we're going to wrap things up with your answers to our question of the day. What annual event do you look forward to most and why? Stick around. We'll be back in a moment.
There's more Access Tech Live to come. Get involved and have your say at Access Tech Live on social media. We'll be right back. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. The show will return in less than a minute. Access Tech Live will be back in 30 seconds. Now, back to Access Tech Live, the latest in tech and accessibility with Stephen Scott and Marc Aflalo.
Welcome back to Access Tech Live. Mark, it's been an interesting show because we're covering, of course, Microsoft's Surface event. We're seeing lots of interesting hardware coming out and a glimpse into the future, I think, which is kind of cool, right? We're getting a little bit of a glimpse because it is a glimpse into the future. We have to remember there's a May event as well. So Microsoft is hosting that consumer event on May as well. So we're looking forward to that. And I don't know. I'm still in this world of just owning a Mac and being happy with running Windows on it. So
I'm with you on that. I mean, I do. Listen, I'm I go back to Windows every once in a while for little things here and there, and I find certain little nuances that Apple does really well, and I kind of wonder why it's not there on a Windows PC, like just being able to hit spacebar and preview anything. Like, I don't know why that's not a thing, but Windows has come a long way. Like, those who have left, if they come back, I think you'd be pretty surprised, especially on some of their devices. Like the Surface is just, I mean, why not? Why Apple's not copying that? Like, and putting some kind of tablet-based PC that's just out there with the full operating system. It's beyond me. I just don't know why. There's such a market.
And of course,
anyhow,
there's the rumor of the iPads as well coming from Apple. Apparently, they're coming out at some point.
In the next couple of weeks.
There's a whole debate around how useful they are. Running iPad OS, not running full Mac. But anyway, that's a discussion for another day. Let's get to our question of the day before we get taken off the air. What annual event do you look forward to most, and why? Marc Aflalo, what's your answer to this? Come on.
Oh, my answer for this. Oh, that's a real. Oh, you know what? You just put me on the spot. I don't even know. I'm with you. I look forward to Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference because you get a glimpse into what's coming down the road. It's kind of fun to look at that, and because other people follow and copy that kind of stuff, which is kind of neat. I also look forward to see. Yes, I really do. It's really cool to see where new technology is going, and the fact that we can get our hands on it a lot quicker is pretty cool. But other people took this in very different directions. Stephen. Okay, we'll start with Josh, who says that he looks forward to Shark Week. Now, you may not have Shark Week in the UK, Stephen, but Shark Week is a week where they literally focus on sharks on, what is it, HGTV maybe? I think it is HGTV. Ronnie writes, thank you, Discovery. Thank you. The voice inside my head told me Discovery.
The ear of knowledge, yes.
It's just like Google in my head. Ronnie writes, I used to love the Montreal Jazz Fest, but have not been in years. That's a good one. I never really enjoy it because I have to work all the time, but it's a fun event to be at. Phil writes Super Bowl. I mean, how can you go wrong with the Super Bowl? If you're a football fan, it's a simple one. David writes haircut. Okay, now I have to give some context. Okay, David wrote that because he saw the word annual event, so he wants to make the joke that he gets a haircut annually. He tries to be funny. It's not all the time. It's okay.
You're saying that's a joke, but do we have evidence that it's not a joke?
I've met him before. Yeah, it's probably not a joke.
All right, okay.
Our good friend Jenny Beaufort wrote, Emera Blue Nose Marathon. This is the race that got me into running 10 years ago. We get to take over the streets of Halifax. Sorry, motorists, she writes in brackets, and run over the McDonald Bridge connecting Dartmouth to Halifax. The event is always super well organized, and the atmosphere is unmatched. You see, this is what's fun about this question, because it's local. You know, I got events in Montreal. You got things over there in Scotland. Who knows what you're looking forward to? Greg writes, opening
haggis
day
eating, probably in my case.
Haggis eating and iron brew drinking.
That's right.
Greg writes, opening day for Major League Baseball. That's what, a couple weeks away, I think. It means summer is really on the way. Now, that being said, Greg, I've seen opening day for Major League Baseball with snowstorms outside. So I'm not really sure that it's a sign summer is coming, but summer is approaching, I promise. Even though, Stephen, right now, I know in most of Canada, it's like minus 19. It is absolutely freezing. Evan writes, I look forward to Christmas because I love the decorations, the cookies, the presents, the music, and spending time with family. It spreads a good vibe and puts smiles on people's faces. Plus, you get time off. Who can argue that?
Yeah, I got to say, that's the one. I think that's the one that brings us together, isn't it? The idea of time off work and spending it with family. Hang on. The first part I like. Let's wrap up.
Okay, then. Well, then, thank you very much. Again, the Microsoft event is still ongoing. There might be some other announcements. We'll bring that to you, of course, next week. We're working on getting Dave Dame on the show. Hopefully, we'll come to that. And, of course, we also have our good friend Tim is over at CSUN interviewing people. We're going to put all that stuff together for you next week and do a really fun wrap-up of CSUN and see what are some of the cool technology. I'm trying to get Tim to do two things. He has two bounties. Get me someone at Sony to give me a call back, and get Stevie Wonder to come on the show. We'll see if any of those are accomplished. If not, he's fired. So we'll have at that point.
If anybody can do it, it's Tim. It's Tim who will get him on. I know he can do this.
He can do. Tim, if you're watching, if you're paying attention and not working, get back to work, okay, will you?
Yeah.
On behalf of everybody who joined us this week, thank you for being with us. Again, if you want to answer our question of the day, you can still do that. It's up on social media at Access Tech Live. What event do you look forward to? Maybe it's spring, maybe it's summer. Who knows? Let us know at Access Tech Live. Of course, feedback at accesstechlive.com as well. On behalf of Zach Bowden from Windows Central and our good friend Michael Babcock, we will talk to you next week here on Access Tech Live. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks for tuning in to Access Tech Live. Follow us online on all social media at Access Tech Live. Email us feedback at accesstechlive.com. Hosted by Stephen Scott in Glasgow and Marc Aflalo in Montreal. Written by Stephen Scott and Marc Aflalo. Producer, Marc Aflalo. Live show director, Anastasia Spalding-Stenhouse. Technical director, Caitlin Robinson. Audio, Jordan Mulgrave. Live graphics and playback, Kingsley Juco. Graphics coordinator, Eliza Rocco. Integrated Described Video Specialist, M. Williams. Supervising producer, Michelle Dudas. Produced in collaboration with Aflalo Communications Inc. and Double Tap Productions. Copyright 2024, Accessible Media Inc.
An AMI original production.